Hey everyone, and today, or at least I'm going to start it today, I am going to be talking about Big Brother 4. And this was the season out of the early ones that I always thought was the weakest one, and I still think that way, but I ended up enjoying the season a lot more than I did during this rewatch, especially with how I was focusing specifically on the gameplay. And I also think that me listening to the BB4 documentary that was done a few years ago helped me see the game and add insights to certain things that they couldn't cover properly because production didn't know how to cover certain strategic elements. I do think the season is the last for a lot of things, as it would be the last of a lot of the luxury competitions that we would see, and this would be the last slower paced season, and arguably the last evenly edited season, where you got to know all the house guests for good and for bad, you saw their families, so on and so forth. As in future seasons, from BB5 onwards, the game got a lot more fast paced, and you can tell that production focused a lot on their favorites in the edit while the other ones would be neglected. This season would be the start of them casting younger casts in general, and would be the start of the casting twists, where we have the Exes twist. And I do think that it added a lot of layers and complexities towards the season, especially with some of the dynamics. It was weird that there were 3 single pairs, and it was initially going to be 4 pairs, since June was supposed to be a single and G was an alternate. So I wish that they had everyone have an X in their house, but they would fix this in BB6 when they essentially do the same twist. There was a lot of nastiness in this cast overall, which was just very uncomfortable to watch. And what made it worse is that it was always behind one another's backs and never towards one another's face. So there wasn't a whole lot of drama happening. And apparently from the feeds, this cast wasn't too far off from BB15. And they definitely benefited from being on an earlier season where a lot of the archives is lost. And you can see why most of them went under the radar and into hibernation after the season happened. I think week 1 is kind of a standard week 1, though it was a bit more interesting with the Exes dynamics, seeing how everyone was affected by it. The first actual event, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean, happening in Big Brother overall, and the expulsion that takes place. So let's just get right to it. David talks about being in special ops. Allison mentions that she's a pageant princess. Nathan doesn't mention much outside of buying tractors. Michelle talks about size not mattering. Scott talks about how he's going to run things. June mentions how she loves herself. Erica mentions something along the lines of giving the house guests a workout. Justin mentions something about turning the house into a steel caged mouse, which I have no idea what that is. Amanda only mentions something about style. Robert mentions that he will be loved to be hated. Jack mentions how he's worked in the FBI for 30 years, and Jean mentions being an international player, which is definitely more of a Robert thing, now that I'm looking back. Dana talks about breaking the competition with her martial arts. So essentially we get nothing about their strategies entering the house. Dana mentions that she isn't going to fall in love in the house, which we know isn't the case. Nathan talks about looking good for the woman, which he fulfilled his role in that. Erica talks about her lingerie. Dave mentions having sex on camera, which is very foreshadowing, and Amanda talks about not burning in the sun, since she's half black, while Robert talks about his Cuban heritage, with Latin music being played. It's interesting that they still do this 20 years later on BB seasons. June tries to sleep in the same bed with Nathan, where he politely rejects her offer. Nathan and Allison bond immediately, and we see the start of the beach room. Jack, Erica, and David start to bond. The house guests realize that there are too little people in the house since there's only 8 of them. June makes fun of Erica's age and surgeries. People mention that June is flirtatious. People talk about Nathan being the hottest thing ever. People think Allison is a sweet, adorable woman, though Dana makes fun of her short skirt. David talks about how cute Dana is, which is very ironic, based on the terms he would call her later on. David accuses Scott of being gay, which we see it started here. And it's clear that Jack and David really like one another based on their careers, and you can see them start to gravitate towards one another. Julie tells the cast that some of the exes will arrive in the house, and that the exes also don't know about the twist either. Allison is freaking out, since she knows that her boyfriend will freak out, probably because she knows she'll do something horrid. But apparently, he's jealous over Justin, because Justin's one of the few exes that she spoke positively about. Of course, all the original 8, who immediately form an alliance, mention that they're going to get rid of all the exes. It's interesting seeing Dana console Allison about the ex's twist as she's handling the worst, especially since we know what will happen between them and Justin. Scott and Amanda talk separately about how they got engaged and moved in with one another, but he got paranoid and he didn't like her dirtiness. Allison mentions that her boyfriend knows she's a flirt and will stop watching if anything bad happens. She and Justin dated for a school year, where he was on the wrestling team and she was on the dance team, so they didn't see one another much until his season ended, where they hung out more and their personalities changed, as she was a drunk and he became horrible. June mentions how she doesn't date Asian men due to her relationship with G. There's so much to unpack here that I could unpack, but I shouldn't. Let's just move on. And G talks about how he doesn't like how Americanized June was, which caused a culture clash, since June is not a typical Korean woman. David mentions how he wants to stay single until he is 30, and he mentioned that he wanted to have sex with Michelle, and she mentions that he was her first relationship, where they started arguing, though she didn't even think that he was sexually active, which clearly wasn't the case. Erica mentions that she is dating, but we won't find out until Oshtells that she was dating at this time, and she was dating Josh from Big Brother 1, but it never came up in the season whatsoever, or at least on the episodes. She talks about her relationship with Robert, who did not like being tied down, where he cheated on someone she worked with, and he admits that he cheated on every relationship he's been in, where she also helped him get fired from his job. Everyone reacts to seeing their ex in the house. Allison has a huge meltdown. Erica sticks her middle finger at Robert. And we see Scott and Amanda immediately argue, which I am sure did not help either one of their games. Erica soon realizes that she can use the ex's twist to her advantage, and Nathan is happy that no exes of his are in the house, so he's planning on sitting back and letting the drama happen, which is definitely a good strategy for him that I wish he maintained throughout the season. Justin and Allison have a calm conversation, especially since they didn't have a messy breakup. The exes were given bed passes to kick anyone off, where Robert takes Allison's bed and G used it to take Dana's bed. Justin, Amanda, and Michelle knew that they didn't want to cause waves to use the bed passed. Obviously, Dana and Allison are really pissed off about it. We get a segment about Michelle and Nathan sharing a bed, and I think they had a flirtment in the season, though it's clear nothing will happen because she is a virgin. Dana and June immediately bond, where they wake up early and cook for the house, and Jack mentions that he sees their strategy of cooking for the house. June and G talk about the relationship to the other house guests, and then we learn that his father passed away via cancer when their relationship was on the decline, and she made a promise to his father on his deathbed where she would take care of G and his family, but she couldn't fulfill that. We start to see Erica being a game bot while everyone is hanging out in the hot tub. Of course, all the original 8 is talking about if they get into H, one of the exes need to go, though we see Justin and Allison start to somewhat align, even if she mentions that it is fake, though Justin would later admit that he and she had aligned very early on in the season. Scott, Nathan, and Allison talk about how they need to nominate a strong ex a la Robert and a weak ex a la Amanda. Nathan, Allison, and June go in the bathroom, where he tells them that people have discussed putting up Justin and G, and June mentions that in past seasons, the person who is supposed to go never goes. G hears 3 people whispering in the room, and he tells Justin and Robert, and it's clear that they are close already, but G doesn't want to think too much about it. For the HOH competition, Erica partners with G, Justin is paired with Robert, G mentions that they don't want Erica to win HOH, and wants to nominate her, hence him partnering with her. Amanda is paired with Michelle, Jack is paired with David, June mentions that their partnership is way too obvious, so people were already seeing how close Jack and David were. June is partnered with Dana, and Allison is partnered with Nathan, leaving Scott on his own. And it could also show that he wasn't doing very well socially. Allison and Nathan and Justin and Robert are the final 2 pairs in the competition, where the 4 of them make a deal that they won't nominate Justin or Robert if they win HOH. Scott has the choice to choose who wins, and he chooses Nathan, since the kneelers were the ones who actually did the work. Allison is thrilled that she didn't win, since she has a few alliances already. Amanda and June give one another a look about David potentially throwing the HOH. Justin mentions that they have a lot of common. Him and Nathan have a lot in common, which is interesting since they butt heads throughout the entire season, though they don't realize until the very end that they should have worked together, so it's interesting that he mentions this now. People immediately start puckering up to Nathan, and we get a segment about the girls lusting after the guys, especially Nathan. Erica is struggling socially since she's the oldest woman in the house and is in a different place in her life compared to the others. June and Amanda talk about how weird it is that Robert and Erica dated, and we see Scott tell Erica that G mentioned that Dana, Nathan, and June have an alliance, and we learn that Erica and Scott have a final two. Nathan tells June that he does not trust Erica, and June mentions that she is playing this all wrong. She, meaning Erica. We get a segment about how the girls are jealous of Michelle, and Justin and Nathan mentions how attractive Michelle is, where she mentions that being sexy is a part of her strategy, where June even mentions that people are jealous of her. Nathan would end up using this against Allison on the feeds, apparently when their relationship eventually falls apart. Allison speaks to Nathan about how the only people she trusts are him, June, and Dana, which LMFAO about that last name, where she also mentions in the diary room that she wants to go to the final two with Nathan. Remember this when Allison tries to rewrite history about how she solely used him for something that happens later. Remember this. She does the same thing that Will does with rewriting history a lot. They mention that they like Robert more than Erica, and Allison mentions that most of the house wants to nominate Erica, since she is shisty, but Nathan doesn't want to break his word in the first week, since he won't last long afterwards. Justin and Allison start boxing, and he accidentally hits her in the face, where she gets an ice pack and she complains, where she mentions that Justin is her boyfriend. Allison starts breaking down because of her actual boyfriend, and she starts to feel a lot of guilt. Probably because she knows she's going to do something wrong. We see David's sense of humor, and it makes the house warm up to him, since he cheers people on and cheers people up. Scott thinks that they are alike, but Dana mentions that people are laughing with David instead of laughing at Scott. David mentions that it is a strategy of his for people to not take him seriously, but he does want to win. Justin, Nathan, and Allison talk about how unpredictable David is, especially since he sat at the bottom of the pool, and how he is a wild card, since he can be a class clown, but then he can get very serious, so it seems like people are seeing through his strategy. Erica, Scott, Jack, and David isolate themselves from the rest of the house, who is having fun and are playing a relatively sexual game. It's clear that those four are on one side of the 8, while Nathan, June, Dana, and Allison are on the other side of the 8 at this point. June decides to go outside so she can bond with them, and this is an example of her early floater stuff that she doesn't fully commit to at this point in the game. But Scott gave her a death glare, which pisses them off, where June reports back to Dana, Allison, and Nathan about how he's pissing her off, and they agree that Scott and Erica need to go. Scott tries going over to the Nathan side of the alliance, and mentions that the 8 needs to stick together, though they trash him behind his back, and June mentions that there's a clear showmance happening between Nathan and Allison. Nathan nominates Amanda and G for eviction, and mentions that he can't trust Amanda, though we are not given any reason as to why she isn't trustworthy. Scott and Amanda doesn't like the speech Nathan gave. Even Jack mentions that the speech was not the best, and Scott calls him a hick. They mention that he has the girls golfing all over him, and she's one of the few who aren't doing that. It's clear that everyone is avoiding Amanda immediately after the nominations, and June is shocked that people aren't comforting her, which isn't a good game move for them to do. June also does not want G to go yet, since she could use him for the game. G talks game with Justin about the potential votes, and they think that he should be fine. We get a horrible segment about Scott calling Dana a man troll, and apparently he isn't the only one who did this with the season, and David is dancing to it. Amanda and G talk about it, and June tells Dana about the nickname, where Dana shockingly handles it well and doesn't let it bother her. Something like this would not air today, and now Dana wants to target Scott. Jack talks about how he sees the game, and it's interesting. Nathan is the strongest asset due to his charisma, Erica is a smooth operator, David is very strong mentally and is an ass kicker, June is a liability, which LMAO at this point, who won't last long. Very ironic. Michelle is eye candy and is a girl in a house full of women, so kind of showing how she's kind of set up to fail. He calls Dana out on being a double agent, where she reports everything to Justin, which is showing how close those two already were at this point, but the edit doesn't focus on it yet. Allison is a daddy's girl who isn't a strong player with LMAO. Scott is a strong personality who will lose his cool, and Justin is the primary threat, since he's the best mental and physical player who is focused. The power of veto is changed from how it was done last season, where it is now the golden power of veto, where you can veto yourself, but everyone plays in it, which will be a flaw in this season, and we will see how flawed the veto still is as the vetoes take place throughout the season. Scott declares his love for Amanda, and the house guests are finding it weird, since he was cursing her out a few days ago, and they think that he will veto her if he wins it. Dana ends up winning the veto, but she and Nathan literally complete the competition at the same time in a really cool flashback. G and Amanda are not expecting the veto to be used, since Dana and Nathan are close. We see Nathan and Allison, where she mentions that she's flirting with him because she'll get more out of him, and he will help her win $100,000. So I guess at this point she's starting to realize she could use him strategically. She calls him a meathead who doesn't know what he's doing, which will make him our target over her. June, Allison, and Dana talk about the guys in the house, and they talk about how Justin has a weird ear, which is ironic since we know how Dana gets with him later, and they insult the other woman's look, which is so great. We start to see Scott derailing in the game, not only from a mental point of view, but socially as well. He starts yelling a bunch of times randomly, and people feel really uncomfortable around his presence. Dana, Robert, and June talk about taking G off the block and putting up Scott, where June is really pushing it to Nathan. Actually, it might have been Nathan in this conversation instead of Robert, so if I say that incorrectly, that might be why. Dana tells him that the only people who would care is David, Erica, and Jack, and we see him talk to Erica and Jack about it. People mention that Scott has been disappearing to sleeping for hours throughout the last couple of days, and he starts rambling about production and about being a caged animal, and he throws chairs across the room. Production tries calling him and refuses to go in. Amanda talks to him about how back and forth is making people feel uncomfortable, which she tells him, and he mentions that he knows she won't give him a second chance, and she tells him to calm down since she's leaving the house anyways. He mentions that he doesn't care about being in the game anymore. They have a house meeting, and the house mentions that he has done this behavior time and time again, after he's already apologized to other people, so it shows that it isn't sincere. It leads to Scott getting expelled from the house, and there's a lot more to this than what appears, where apparently he revealed that he had an STD, and a lot of the women, especially Allison and Michelle, really freaked out about it, and it caused them to wipe the toilets and stuff like that, but it was a huge deal, and they really edited it down here. Scott is definitely an unbearable presence in the season, and he definitely should not have been classed, just based on how he was doing mentally in the house. Socially, he was in the 8 Alliance, but that was only done because he is an original, and it was clear that they were already thinking about getting rid of him, and he only had 3 allies that would care about him, but even they knew that he was a ticking time bomb. There really isn't much to say about Scott, and I'm just going to move on. Dana ends up not using the veto, despite everyone already knowing at this point that she's playing a double agent game, and people are still dealing with the aftermath of Scott's expulsion. Erica tries to have a peaceful talk with Robert, but he shuts it down and mentions that they have never been friends and will continue to not be friends after the season ends, and outside of the house. She starts crying about that and the Scott thing, which we will see more of this in the next week. We do see Dana starts getting close to Justin, and is hoping that she will influence him. We see Dave and Amanda talk about how they are interested in one another, and he mentions that he didn't approach her because of Scott. This leads to them having sex, and they're the first people to have sex in the Big Brother house, which, get it, I guess. Allison talks about how flirting with Nathan is only for strategy, and won't go beyond a kiss on the cheek and cuddling, though we literally see them making out with one another under his HOH sheets. Amanda gets evicted in a unanimous vote of 9-0. I feel like as a person, Amanda is a very chill person who would be nice to hang out with, but she really didn't offer anything in the season. She literally didn't game with anyone whatsoever, she didn't have any allies, and you can tell she really didn't give an F about being there. So despite having that one moment with David, she isn't really memorable, and is probably one of the worst players in general, since she never really had a chance, and I don't even know if she was an original, that her game would have improved that much. I do think week 2 is a relatively interesting week, especially as it leads to a blindside, and it's right before the lines of the house are starting to be established for sure. You definitely get a lot of different moving pieces strategically, and you can tell that it's building up to something. G ends up winning HOH after all the exes make it to the tiebreaker round. The 8 does not exist for Dana anymore, since the other side won HOH, and the 8 are extremely nervous, rightfully so. It's interesting that Dana is trying to float here, but she does it so badly. Anyways, Dana's OCD shows up, and she is pissed off about everything, especially with the house guests being so dirty, and the thing is, Dana cannot hide it when she's annoyed, so she's pissing off most of the house. Dana talks to G, who tells her that she is safe. Allison, Nathan, and Jack are pissed off with Dana already kissing ass, and they're hoping that they can get Dana up and out, since she would be the best person from their alliance to go home. Robert talks to the Stooges about how Nathan hates Dana, which is good, since keeping her safe will cause her to be a target in front of them. People are really confused about how Robert and Erica got together, since Robert is very ugly, their words, not mine, and Erica is very beautiful. But people mention that he's extremely confident and he has a really good personality, while being very straightforward. He mentions that he makes people feel like they're honored to speak to him, and Erica calls him a used car salesman who's good at his job. Right after the conversation, Robert and Erica in the last episode, I believe, or the second last episode, we see her continue to melt down, though some people are over her antics, and because she cries so much, people don't know whether they are real or not, and it is one of the main reasons why she's set in such a poor position early on in the season. Justin and G talk about how they need to take Erica out and hopes that it will weaken Jack and David, so they're hoping that they can get the two to make it another unanimous vote. We see David and Michelle fight because he's joking around with her and she's taking it too seriously, but it's clear that he doesn't care about her feelings and tries to flirt with her here and there, though she thinks that his jokes are mean-spirited toward her. G tells Michelle that he's going to nominate her as a pawn, and she doesn't get why a guy can't be a pawn instead of a girl, and how it isn't fair since she's just so nice and too nice. G clearly doesn't care and thinks that if she goes home, it's her fault. David tries telling Michelle that he has her, and he mentions to the diary room, I believe, that Michelle would do whatever Nathan wants, so she is on their side, and it's interesting that we get that little tidbit of the dynamics. David speaks to G so he can get Dana up, and G does not care whatsoever, though she shouldn't feel too safe. G ends up nominating Michelle and Erica for eviction. After the nomination ceremony, Erica goes on a racist rant about G, and I cannot believe that this aired, because she hated his comment about her making people feel uncomfortable. There are so many other things that Erica could have attacked G about, but the fact that she immediately went to his race and ethnicity says a lot about her poor character. The girls cheer Michelle up, but they have her on a need-to-know basis, so they're telling her that she is safe, and of course G reassures Michelle again that she is going to be fine. Erica thinks that it is an emotional nomination since G is close with Robert, and she's hoping that if the nominations remain the same, they vote out Michelle. We see Allison and Nathan beating one another with boxing gloves, and it's clear sexual tension. G and June reveal that they are silent partners and are working together secretly. They don't focus on this as much on the show than it really was in reality, since there are times where G was more loyal to June than his own alliance. Dana is freaking out and is very paranoid, which is pissing the entire house off. June talks to Nathan, and after their conversation, June reports to Dana that he has had enough of her and that she needs to calm down, since no one in the house has her back, and Dana mentions that she has visibly moved away from the 8 Alliance, and she thinks that's why they are mad. June tells Dana that the entire house is going after her and to not tell anyone, but she blatantly ignores June's advice and confronts the Stooges about it, which causes them to be annoyed with Dana. She mentions that Allison is starting the brigade, as Justin is massaging Dana, and they know that June told Dana, but the Stooges know that Dana will be theirs in a week. June and G have a conversation where she covers her ass by blaming Michelle, which causes June to realize that Dana is a liability that she can't look after anymore. Though we will see June try to protect Dana in the future. David ends up winning the veto and is anticipating to use the veto on Michelle or Erica. The two of them talk to G in order to get Dana up on the block, but G is clearly not biting since the majority of the house wants Erica out, which isn't accurate. Michelle, June, and Allison decide to do less bikinis, and it's clear that they're trying to replicate the peanut butter bikinis that the ladies did last season. The Stooges pretty much threatened David because he made the deal with them that he wouldn't use the veto before he won it, and G is trying to make it seem like he's making everyone a favor by doing this, which David notices. Somehow, Nathan ends up joining the conversation and also tries to push Dana to go up, but the Stooges are not biting. Jack enters the room and mentions that Dana won a competition already, but G mentions that Dana has no credibility in the house. Nathan came up with a plan for David to act like he isn't using it, but to use it, and G will panic to put Dana up on the block. But it could backfire with G nominating Nathan or Jack. David did not end up using the power of veto. Erica is still pissed off with G, and the Stooges think that it's guaranteed for Erica to go, since most of the house wanted her to go last week. Dana mentions that she promised them that she wouldn't vote to evict Michelle, and that she wants Erica gone. Michelle mentions that she isn't doing anything and wants the week to go, though Erica is told by David and Jack that she's staying, and we do see Jack and Nathan plot about it. June and G mention that their alliance is the most important one in the house, and they know how to communicate without verbalizing certain things by a look or a gesture, where you pick up certain things after dating for 6 years. Michelle is evicted in a 6-2 vote. I would definitely say that this is one of the more brutal blindsides in Big Brother history, especially because she was so young and this happened so early in Big Brother's history, and she really doesn't react well to it at all. At the same time, I don't really have much high hopes for her as a game player. She mentioned briefly that she was flirting for a strategy, but she didn't even use it much like Allison did. And she really just did nothing and felt like she was just hanging out at like a college campus or a high school recess or something. We did learn that she was like Nathan's side piece or whatever, or that's how people interpreted her as, and she wanted to get in with the girls. So she wasn't even aligned with the Stooges. In general, she was just way too passive and was way over her head pertaining to the game, so I don't have thoughts about her much as a character or as a game player. Week 3 is easily the peak of the season, and it's very sad that the peak of this season is so early on. It's one of the few weeks where there's actually a lot of drama, the majority alliance completely eats itself up alive, and it sets the foundation for what the dynamics would be like for the rest of the season. And all the little jealousies and stuff like that really comes to fruition here. Of course, the three Stooges are shocked that Michelle went and Erica stayed, as they now know that everyone is after and against them. Dana ends up winning HOH, and the Stooges feel like they have some sort of chance of staying. And members of the 8 are nervous, since she is a wildcard. We get more focus on Dana and Justin's showmance, where they both mention that it's genuine and we see them flirting several times. Dana talks to June about how they should join the Three Stooges since it will make things 5v5, and June mentions that in the diary room that she and Dana aren't friends and it's just a game for her, though June has since admitted that she did hang out with Dana quite a bit after the season ended, but their friendship didn't remain. Justin mentions that Jack, Allison, Nathan, and David told the Stooges that they would put up Dana, and they've thrown her under the bus since week 1, especially Allison. This is what he told Dana. Dana mentions to the group that Justin told her everything they said about her, and this leads to a huge fight with Allison and Justin, where she hopes that he admits to his wrongdoings, and he calls her out for kissing Dana's ass, just like they all did with G last week. Justin mentions that everyone knows that she would not hesitate to lie to anyone, and she is shocked by this, since he is trying to make her look like a bad person. Justin feels confident after her outburst that she will be heading home. June starts snapping over how messy the house guests are, especially the blondes who just got out of college, and we get a segment about her being the queen of the house, since she cooks for everyone and is funny. Nathan mentions that June is playing everyone, like she's playing them, she's playing Dana, and she's playing Justin. June tells Dana that they should stick with the 8, since she has a feeling about Robert being untrustworthy, and she told G in front of Robert that she asked them if they were willing to put up Dana, and they were stuttering, so she clearly knew that they were lying. She mentions that they have a bigger chance of being nominated if they go after the 8, since the Stooges will put them up and neither side will trust them, but Dana doesn't believe it, since it would be 5v5. People talk about how Justin is the all-American jock, though others mention that he is smart, can be crazy and aggressive, which takes advantage of other people's weaknesses, and he has come close in every single competition. David and Jack tried to speak to Dana about how Justin is playing her and that they need to target him, since he is the best competitor, but Dana mentions that he has not won a competition yet, and she will have a better chance of winning competitions with him out. That's what Jack proposed to her, but he's not doing it in a way that will appeal to Dana. They should have used a better argument, as she will be the second strongest competitor if she switches sides, but she's the strongest if she stays with the 8. That is their mini Jack's argument to her. But he would do this with a lot of people throughout the season, as he makes pitches and doesn't even do it in a way where it will appeal to the person he's pitching to. Erica and Robert start bickering about him hounding Dana, but it ends up with him crying about the starter, and it was Erica who ends up comforting him, and Robert decides that he doesn't want to target her anymore, though this does not last. Nathan speaks to Dana, where she mentions that everyone has told her so many things, but she likes him and doesn't want to believe what people are telling her. Dana ends up nominating Allison and Jack for eviction, though the 8 told her that she should nominate Justin and Robert. Allison is really pissed off, and the 8 Alliance is shocked with the nominations, mentioning that Dana has no chance to win, since everyone after this week will be in jury or the final 2. Erica and Nathan talk about how they need to keep Allison, since she's a stronger player after Jack, or over Jack, and Allison talks about how it is personal because Justin is hooking up with Dana. Justin is of course happy with the nominations, since he essentially knows that Allison is heading out of there unless she wins the veto. June is seemingly happy about Dana having the balls to make the move to split up the house, and Nathan has a conversation with Dana about how she promised him safety, but he thought that Ali was also safe. Dana tells him that her name came up the most, and Allison enters the conversation, where they start arguing about the nomination and how she feels like it is personal, since Dana wants Justin and she sees Allison as a threat to that, while Dana keeps on mentioning that it is a big move. You can definitely see how the showman's drama between Dana, Justin, Allison, and Nathan really have a huge effect on next few weeks and even played somewhat of a role in the prior weeks. David, Erica, and Jack hope that one of them can win the veto and they can force her to nominate one of the Stooges. After Jack leaves, Erica and David talk about how they will have to send Allison home since they are loyal to Jack. Allison and Justin have a talk about how involved he was in the situation and how they are both being fake essentially. We get a segment about David splashing people while they're in the hammock, and we see Allison and Nathan talk about how they're a good combo and how he needs to win the veto, since they know that in the Alliance of 5, it is them against David, Jack, and Erica, which the Stooges and Dana even talk about that dynamic. Nathan ends up winning the veto, though Allison knows that she is done without the veto, though Justin was very close yet again. I believe they had to check footage since it was so close. The House starts to realize that Nathan is probably going to use the veto, and he's thrilled to use it, though Dana mentions that they will just use their strongest player, since the only replacement options are Erica and David. Due to Allison winning the luxury comp, she and Nathan end up going on a date, though we see Allison flirt with Justin as she's drunk, and it pisses Nathan off, especially because she tells Justin essentially that she's staying. Nathan is mad that she spilled the beans, and Justin tells most of the house. After their spat, Nathan speaks Jack, Erica, and David about how he shouldn't use the veto. Despite their spat, Nathan ends up using the veto on Allison, which Dana is pissed off about, and she ends up arguing with Nathan about his betrayal, though she betrayed the Alliance a few days ago herself. Dana ends up putting up David, since it's a move that Nathan would never ever make, according to Dana. Dana is crying in her HOH room, and David is annoyed, since she put him in the lion's fire, despite her apologizing to him. People mention that Dana is playing with her vagina, and the Stooges and Dana are so pissed off that they want Nathan out more than ever. So David is hoping that them offering him a deal to stay, so he will nominate Allison and Nathan will keep him in the house. And the Stooges actually did want to keep David in the house. Jen tells them that they're thinking emotionally with keeping David, since he wins comps over Jack and he will go back on their word. And he wants to nominate Nathan and Allison, though Justin thinks David wants them out. Derek tells Erica this, and he mentions that it is a blatant lie. Erica is sad about her 2 closest people being on the block, and that one of them is going home. It hits her harder since Jack is a father figure to her, and she didn't have a father figure in her life. David is a brotherly figure to her. We also learn that David and Allison end up making out and hooking up, though there's nothing to gain from this, since he was asking her for his vote, and there's no power that Allison could have gained from this, and there's no way she could pin this strategically, though we will see that she tries to rewrite this as some strategic move. David is evicted in a 5-2 vote. I definitely think David had potential as a player, and I think he got pushed into the crossfire that he wasn't in with all the showman's drama that ended up taking place. And I don't think he did much wrong to warrant his eviction, though it seemed pretty clear that people saw through his strategy early on. And I think he should have bonded with the non-Jack and Erica side of the house, since they were the weaker players generally, and he was obviously going to stand out amongst them. As a personality, I definitely think he was very annoying, but he was somewhat entertaining as well, and I think he would have offered a lot more compared to some of the other guys had he lasted longer in the house. Overall, definitely one of the pre-jurors with some of the most potential. Week 4 is definitely a tamer week, and it's mainly the aftermath of what happened in week 3 and the conclusion of this weird love square that happened in the season, and it would culminate or kind of fizzle out within next week as well. So it's kind of like a 3-week arc, in my opinion. But in general, there aren't a lot of moving parts in this week, but you would see Allison start to set herself up for what she would be known for strategically throughout the rest of the season here. Allison ends up winning HOH, and she is salty that Dana tried to argue with her on the live show. It's also interesting that Allison mentioned that she thought Jack was leaving, but apparently the vote a lot clearer than what the 5-2 vote would indicate, and this wouldn't be the first time it happened to Jack throughout the season. The other side of the house quickly leaves the HOH room outside of G, and June mentions that it's really Nathan's HOH, which isn't accurate, as she would prove this week. We get a scene of how the other side of the house all has tattoos, meaning the Stooges, June, and Dana, and the other side don't have tattoos. Dana calls them insecure, and Robert mentions that the other side don't have personality, which is why they don't have tattoos. The tattoo side is very salty about the HOH results, but of course the Stooges hope that Dana and June are nominated. Nathan pushes for June to go up initially, which is interesting, since he would change his mind on this, and we see Allison talk to Jack and Erica about how she's nominating June and Dana, but Jack tells her to nominate Justin and Dana, to vote out Justin, and to get Dana out afterwards, since Justin is the brains of the operation. In the diary room, Allison mentions that she is 98% sure that Justin is going up. In the scene that would never air today, we get a scene of June gaining weight during the season, and they put a side-by-side pic, which is just yikes. They didn't need to do that to her. Jack is fitting in relatively well with the younger house guests, especially compared to the previous older house guests like Jerry and Kent. Apparently, G is the only person who smokes in the house, as Dana mentioned that she quit last year. And it's interesting that Erica is talking about people who don't quit smoking are weak, especially since we know that she smokes all throughout All Stars. They talk about how it's weird since G's father also died from smoking. We have a segment of Allison and Nathan reading the Bible, and the other house guests find it really weird that they're reading it, and the pair are laughing that they are pretty much doing everything that the Bible states that they shouldn't be doing. The Stooges are talking to Nathan in the hot tub, and Nathan asks Justin why he hates Allison so much, and Justin states that she is a pathological liar, and he tells him that Allison talks a lot about Nathan. They ask him why he saved her with the veto, and he mentions that she's a smart girl and a gamer. We have a scene where June and Allison are talking in the HOH room, where Allison mentions that she's considering everyone but Nathan. Allison asks June that if she doesn't nominate her, that June will not nominate her if she wins HOH. June mentions that she can't promise that with Nathan, and Allison is fine with that, since everyone wants him gone. Allison and Justin have a talk in the HOH room where everyone wants him gone, and they are working together, as she does not want to put him up. Allison asks Justin if he would vote her out if a stooge is nominated, her being Dana, and he says that he will, since she knows that either she or him are going home this week. Allison is mad that Justin never defends her against Dana, and Justin mentions that Dana is more mad at Nathan than Allison at this point. They talk about how poor Nathan is, and it leads to them claiming that he's in the closet, in addition to a bunch of other homophobic stuff. And it's just really awful to watch. She mentions to Justin that she will protect Nathan this week, but it's done after that. So if she doesn't nominate him, he won't nominate her. Apparently, from what was talked about on the live feed and from the documentary, Allison's change in behavior of Nathan mainly came when she got her HOH room and she saw pictures of her boyfriend, so she started really freaking out. And I think this is where she started to really revise certain things and act like it was all strategy. And I think she could have handled the situation a lot better. And it would give the house guests a reason to not respect her even more as a player and as a person. Allison nominates Dana and June for eviction. Erica, Jack, and Nathan aren't pleased with Allison's nominations, and we have an awkward conversation between Allison and Nathan that he knows he will be nominated if one of them don't win next week, and his gut told him that Justin should have went this week. Allison mentions that June could come back to them if Dana is gone, where Justin isn't. Dana is reporting to them that Nathan is yelling at Allison, though we don't see him yelling at her, and June is annoyed that people from the 8 are going at one another instead of the exes. Nathan is telling Jack and Erica that if he wins the veto, he would veto Dana so Justin can be put up. But apparently, according to the feeds, Allison would have just put someone like G up so June could go home, since she wanted one of Dana or June to go. June admits that the nominations are a good move for Allison. We learn about more makeouts that happened, like Nathan and Michelle making out, and Allison making out with David before he left, and people are confused about why Allison is making out with people when she has a boyfriend, which Nathan teases her about, but you can clearly tell that he is upset about how things are going, and he is somewhat jealous, though he really has no right to be, since she's a taken woman. Dana talks to Erica about the nominations, and Erica mentions that everyone is playing emotionally, and she reports everything to Allison. And it does seem like Allison will put Justin up as replacement if their veto is used. Or at least that's what the edit tries to make it seem like. We get an awkward segment of Justin talking in a Korean accent, which I'm sure is well intentioned on his part, but it definitely doesn't age well at all. And we see G and Justin playing around. Jack and Erica are annoyed since Dana made her bed and she has to lie in it, since she broke the alliance from last week and now she's on the block. I will say that Jack and Erica also like to revise things and they like to wag their fingers in people's faces and acting like they knew better when they're already out of the loop for a lot of the season and they kind of isolate themselves at times. We get more development of June and G's alliance, where she tells him that he needs to vote with the Stooges, and how they both mention that they'll probably nominate Nathan and Jack, with a minor chance of Nathan and Erica nominations. So clearly, it is very telegraphed what is going to happen. We get a very weird segment of Nathan having a more feminine side, since he wears makeup, does his nails, shaves his body, flexes his butt, and makes a lot of weird jokes about G's body, which Justin and Allison makes fun of in the diary room, and insinuate again that he's gay. Though you can definitely tell that Justin's kind of jealous of Nathan, but apparently Nathan wasn't innocent pertaining some of these remarks either. Jack even mentions that people go after his masculinity because he's a pretty muscular boy and they have nothing else. Robert and Erica have a nice conversation about how they're going to last a long time in the game, and they are in a much better place strategically and regarding their relationship. It is the anniversary of G's father's death, and he's handling it pretty hard, but it leads to a Korean ceremony where people do mourn their loved ones, and it's nice to see that everyone in the house helped him out with it. I also find the discussions about race and heritage in this era to be so much more genuine and non-performative compared to how Big Brother handles it now and in recent years in general. You really start to see the flaws of the veto format in the season, where because it is more than 6 people competing in a comp, they all gang up on the nominees, and there's essentially no chance for a nominee to win it. You'll see in the other vetoes this season as well, so you see why they end up changing it. And the veto competition this season really makes it so there's no chance that Dana or June could win it, even if they wanted to. Robert ends up winning the veto, and Dana has a meltdown about Allison's comments about the competition and how the comp happened, and it's pretty funny in my opinion. Dana is hoping that Robert will veto her, since at least one of them will not be in the house without the HH comp, and she tries to guilt trip them about it, but apparently they agreed right after the nominations that Dana was the one to go, and they didn't respect how Dana quickly campaigned against June right after the nominations and before the veto ceremony even happened. Justin and Dana talk about if she thinks that he'll be put up instead of G, and he mentions that he has to let her go, since he can't sacrifice G and Robert, though as we will learn, G was more than fine with sacrificing Justin, so it's kind of a flaw in Justin's gameplay. Everyone is getting annoyed about Dana whining about how she saved them, and now she's in danger, as well as how emotional Dana is in general. Robert does not use the veto. Dana talks about how she cannot be in the house due to her OCD, controlling personality. Dana knows that she cannot campaign against June, and she's expecting it to be a 3-3 vote, with the Stooges voting to keep her, but they are clearly leaving her hanging. Dana campaigns to Erica about how she wants to get Allison and Nathan, who's getting closer to the Stooges apparently. Erica and Jack talk about how Dana is not after them, but she said that they should not allow Nathan and Allison to run them, and they don't trust the team. June is annoyed with Dana's campaigning against her, and she just wants to be away from her, and they apparently grew very distant in the last few days of this week. We hear Allison mention that she's planning on bouncing back and forth between the power, as she made a deal with the Stooges, and Nathan is aware that she made a deal with the Stooges, which he is salty to her about, though he should have been doing the same thing. But we'll get more into that next week. And Allison is really defining what a floater is in this moment, and she is doing it first. We get a segment of the Three Stooges who calls themselves the Dream Team, but Justin is the leader, Robert is the sidekick, and G is the enforcer, which makes sense in my opinion. The others talk about how they were the first three targets in the house, and they didn't realize they were on the outs until Michelle was evicted. They are now in power since Dana and Allison went after one another, and if one of them went HOH, they will target the other side, mainly Nathan, which everyone, including Nathan, knows about. Dana is evicted in a unanimous 6-0 vote. Honestly, I enjoyed Dana's presence in this season, and she is arguably my favorite, or one of my favorites from the season. I like that she was unapologetically herself. She didn't give a F about anything, she was going to play her game, and she was going to do her. And while she was definitely very annoying and kind of catty, I didn't find her to go as low as many of the other people did in the house. And I didn't like the man troll comments at all. She was put in a hard predicament since her alliance willfully threw her under the bus first and wanted her to go home over Michelle, so I don't know why they got so mad that she flipped on them when they flipped on her first. At the same time, she isn't a good player because she tried to float, but she didn't do it well, and she really had a lack of a social game, and her OCD personality just genuinely didn't help her. As a character, I definitely enjoyed her, and I do think the season goes downhill and gets less entertaining once she leaves. Week 5 is definitely an interesting week since I see it as the end of the Lust Square saga, and we really have Allison and June both start floating individually this week. But there are definitely some growing pains, especially with the annoying Nathan and Allison wine fest. But we have a lot of interesting gameplay, and half of it wasn't even covered on the episodes, which I definitely think is a shame. June is crying for some reason after the eviction, and Justin ends up winning HOH, which he is very excited about, since he's been second place in almost every single competition. Of course, Nathan is pissed off, since he knows he's going on the block, and Allison tries to somewhat cheer him up, but their relationship withers very quickly. Allison mentions that she flirted with him solely to get him to veto her, and I've already mentioned that this is very revisionist, but she's aware that it put him in a worse position, but she doesn't really care, since it helped her out. Justin and Nathan had this Cold War the entire season, and Jack and Nathan are really saddened, especially since Jack mentions that Nathan keeping his word to Justin in the first week bit him in the butt, and we learn that Jack tried to get Nathan to break his word in the first week. Now, this was definitely not the reason why Nathan's on the block, and it was a good move on Nathan and Justin's part, but it is an example of Jack liking to wag his finger against people to prove he is right, just like how Erica likes to do to people as well. Allison is declaring herself as a floater and is bouncing between the power, giving Nathan lip service about vetoing him. The Dream Team are soaking up in their power and acting like they're in the mob during the HOH room. Jack mentions in the diary room that Justin is the leader, G is the diplomat, and Robert is the emotional one, which is accurate. June and G start to fight about a bunch of random things, and while it seems like they use it for strategy, it's clear that some of it is still from tension, and they argue about their history and how she left her house and how he was a child in their relationship, essentially. We get a dancing segment between Allison, Erica, and Robert, and this leads to Robert and Erica talking about Robert's alcoholism, which caused him to lose his job, and he was close to becoming a bum. I forgot that it was such a topic in this season. But like I mentioned in the BB3 video, alcoholism would never be shown on the show or discussed much in more recent years and seasons. Alcoholism was one of the reasons why their relationship ended, and his daughter is one of the reasons why he stopped drinking, as he doesn't even drink in the house. Erica and Jack notices that Allison ditched them all and is kissing up to the Stooges, and how they would rather target Allison now than deal with Nathan later. Nathan finally decides to talk game with the Stooges and mentions that if he makes it through the week, he won't put any of them up, and that Jack and Erica are outright targeting them, but it's clear that they aren't biting, or at least not yet. Justin wasn't even looking at him in the conversation, which isn't a good sign. Justin nominates Jack and Nathan for eviction, and he goes on about how they both hesitated to lie in his face, and he kind of makes it personal, though literally everyone in the house but Michelle and Erica lied to them about the vote. And obviously I'm not including Amanda because she was out by then. Nathan now regrets using the veto, since they wouldn't have been in this position, especially since she sold him out. They go on about how the alliance went from 8 to 4 to 3. June tells the Stooges that the nominees are annoyed that they were called liars, which they are, and we learn how much the Stooges hold on to their word, which, Allison is annoyed about Nathan acting like a baby, and Erica ends up comforting the two nominees. Nathan blames Allison not getting rid of Justin last week, and the others are calling him a baby, and he apologizes to Jack and Erica for sacrificing David. We get a segment about G being an OCD control freak before we deal with one of the several arguments Allison and Nathan have during the week, as he blames her for being in a position he is now, and she is shocked that he thinks like this, but doesn't regret anything. While Allison definitely did him dirty and continued to do him dirty with how she abandoned him and how she could have handled it better, Nathan needs to take accountability for his part in it, and he didn't need much pushing or manipulation from Allison to use the veto, and for him neglecting his relationships for the last week, before he started to turn on again during this final week. It's like they're a married couple who are on the verge of divorce. That's how their conversations are like. For some weird reason, the producers felt the need to tell us about Justin rarely washing his laundry, and he washes the shorts that he always wears once in a few weeks. The luxury comp involves all of them getting naked and getting covered in bubbles and foam, since their outfits have letters on it, and this competition definitely wouldn't be shown today, and apparently quite a few of them were very uncomfortable with this competition. The veto competition takes place, and it shows yet again the flaws of the format pertaining to players, as we have Nathan complaining about how it isn't fair, and there's essentially no chance for he or even Jack to win the veto, since it's essentially 7-on-1 or 6v2 or whatever. And the veto competition was designed where it's a group of people can help each other win the veto or to block others out. I feel like they would redo similar competitions in 5 and 6, where it's more individualistic, though it has a similar goal. Allison and Nathan argue yet again, where she's acting like she's going to use the veto on Nathan, and we even get some arguing during the veto competition, but it's all for naught since Robert wins his second consecutive veto, and it's clear he's not going to use it. Again. The Dream Team talk about how they're going to be remembered in this game, which, not really. And it seems like Allison is so much trying to help Nathan, as she tells Robert and G that Nathan will nominate Erica and June, and she mentions that it's the better move for Justin, which it is the better move for Justin. We have another argument with Allison and Nathan about him saying that he hopes she has a good life, and she claims that he's the perfect Oklahoma guy who can't handle things not going his way. It comes off like a breakup where they were never in a relationship, and they continue arguing where he moves into different rooms, and it's honestly kind of sad to watch, since I do think that they did have a friendship-like attraction early on, but it just got way too out of line. Nathan pitches to June that the Stooges should veto Jack and to put Allison up in their place. Richie reports to the Stooges, and the Stooges mentions that Allison is their biggest lion in the house. Apparently, this is a little bit of a huge saga that started earlier, where June was heavily going against Allison at this point in time, and she kind of goaded Nathan to pitch that he should go after Allison, and while she was kind of doing it for giggles, she wanted the Stooges to target Allison, and she would have been fine if Allison was nominated, and we start to see this spiral more and more. Of course, Robert doesn't use the veto. Apparently, there's a whole scramble that ended up happening, which the episode didn't cover very well whatsoever. The three Stooges feel extremely confident, since it's the third week in a row where someone from the original 8 Alliance goes. June tells Nathan to not trust Allison much, and decides to be honest with Nathan, since she has nothing to lose. She tells him that Allison initially pitched to Justin to have Jack go instead of him, but when that didn't work, she completely ditched him. Nathan tells Allison this, and Allison confronts June about why she felt that was necessary. Justin mentions that Nathan needs to stop acting like a baby, and he was going to handle it like a man, or at least that's what Nathan told them. Allison goes to Nathan, Erica, and Jack, and tells him that Justin yelled at her, which he didn't yell at her, and that he called Nathan a baby, essentially. Nathan goes to the HOH room, and of course Justin downplays what he said about Nathan, and mentions that Allison mentioned that he's been whining. June calls Allison a liar, and Nathan mentions that June is a snake, talks about everyone, and floats to the power. Apparently, June was dropping a whole bunch of stuff to everyone in the house, telling a bunch of people that this person was targeting them, and that's why they need to do this, so on and so forth. And it was just a huge mess, and eventually caused people to start to distrust June, since she blatantly made it clear that she was playing all sides of the house. But she was lucky to remedy it. Nathan goes to speak to Justin one-on-one about how they've went at one another for weeks because of girls and that they should team up, and they definitely should have teamed up. Allison tells Jack and Erica that Nathan and Justin are in the HOH room with the doors closed with no one else in there, and Nathan mentions that he will nominate whoever they want to, and Justin actually agrees to it. Justin pitches to the Stooges and June that he wants to keep Nathan in the house and that he wouldn't target them. Based on what happened in the archives, Allison, Justin, Robert was convinced at some point, and even G reluctantly did want to keep Nathan at some point, and it was partially because June kept on doing the most. But June, as well as G, started shutting it down, since she and even G wanted Justin to be exposed. And Nathan and Justin teaming up together was deadly, so they were all kind of shutting it down, and they wanted to undermine Justin. And I think Justin should have played more individually well beforehand. And I think if he and Nathan realized that they should have worked together beforehand, things would have turned out differently. And I think Nathan should have woke up a week and a half ago instead of waiting until his last week. Ultimately, this was all based on whether the next HOH comp would be a physical competition or not. So if it was a physical competition, they would keep Nathan, and if it's not, they would vote him out. But usually they voted on the Tuesdays, which was the night beforehand, but they didn't, and they had this vote be live, so maybe that was a factor as well. We learn more about the three women and their strategies, where June uses cooking for strategy, Allison for strategy, and Erica is the nurturer who listens to a lot of people. People mentions that they are all picky. Erica plays the motherly role, who doesn't win comps. Allison uses her feminine sides to get the guys to do what she wants, to manipulate them and to get them on her side, where June mentions that Allison cries on cue and brings back the women's movement 40 to 50 years. They also think that Erica uses her crying for strategy. Nathan is evicted in a unanimous 5-0 vote. As a character, I definitely do think Nathan is one of the better guys, as he is very easy to laugh at and had his whole country stick, but he was definitely problematic on his own, especially from what we got on the feeds. As a player, he's still one of the better players of the season, despite his huge mistake of using the veto to save Allison. But honestly, if he was on a BB5, BB8, or a season a bit later on, I don't think many people would have cared about the veto. And I think his big mistake was not nurturing their relationships afterwards until it was too late. He definitely had a huge part in the first few weeks of how the season went, and I do think he slipped off during week 4, but he went back into game mode in his final week, and he did a very good job at convincing people to keep him, but it was ultimately a bit too late. But I definitely do think that it shows his overall skills as a player. Week 6 is most definitely a boring week, and it's one of the most boring weeks of the season, and you start to see where a lot of the more chaotic figures, like somewhat David, and especially Lena and Nathan leaving, kind of leaves the season to be a lot more boring, not only from a gameplay perspective and just a messy perspective, but somewhat from a drama perspective as well. But it'll be the start of June and Allison joining forces, especially since that weird last square part of the season is over, and now it is just really 3 sides and one of them bouncing back and forth between the 2 other sides that have remained throughout the season. At this point, Allison is willing to target the Stooges and wants someone from the 8 side to win to do it. Erica wins a long endurance competition and G ends up giving it up. Apparently he did this because he wanted someone to take a shot at Justin, and the others mentioned that the 2 want to take him to the end and he wants to be nominated. So it shows that G is a lot more self-interested than Robert and Justin, and why he's a better player as well. Erica is glad she won, since she thinks that they would have sent home Jack if they won HOH, which was definitely the plan based on the discussions that they were having last week and what was reported on the feed and the archives. And G apologizes to his eyes for letting them down, and he does feel a lot of regret about it. We have a scene about everyone working out, and some of the people talking about how Robert will never be a muscle head, and the girls' workouts are made fun of, while seen as entertaining by some. Allison and Erica talk in the HH room, and they talk about the plan to nominate Justin and Robert, where Robert apparently told Allison he won't be mad if Justin went home, which, interesting. G talks to Justin about what they told him in the cage, but G essentially pitches that they need to vote Robert out, since he's the weakest of the alliance and they shouldn't have to keep dragging him along anymore. He says that he and Allison will vote to keep him, meaning Justin, but they just need June's vote. Allison tells the guys that she's still sticking with them, and we learn that Robert wants to target June. And apparently this was due to all of the mess she caused last week with Nathan and the house in general. Allison mentions that she is going to bounce back and forth between the power from here on out, and Erica nominates Justin and Robert for eviction. Erica is seemingly struggling with the fact that the person who she wants gone is a pawn, but the person she really likes is the target. Justin knew he was going up with Robert as soon as Erica won the HOH, and he as well as Robert are not interested in June blatantly playing both sides, and Robert rants about how much he wants June gone, and he would rant about June for the rest of the season. And we're only halfway through the season, so imagine how exhausting that is. Robert speaks to Allison and Erica about how they need to get June out, since she's a huge sneak who is playing both sides. Jack and Erica and Allison talk about how Robert is trying to make a truce, and that will cause them to target their own. June talks to G about how he needs to vote Justin out, since Allison might vote to keep him, and it will keep the target off his back, and G mentions that they have to look out after one another. Jack and Erica talk about both Allison and June are floaters, and apparently the house made a lot of final two scenarios about who will win in the final two, and when it came to June and Allison, they all collectively agreed that June will beat Allison. So this is where a lot of this comes from. June and Allison decide to team up since they know that the others are floaters, but June mentions that she isn't seducing guys like Allison is. They know that there will be two pairs in the final six, with the remaining Stooges as a pair and Jack and Erica as a pair, so it makes sense for them to be a pair as well. Erica tells G that he cannot use the veto if he wins it, and he tries to semantic his way out of it, since he mentions that she told that to Allison, but she said that she told it to the both of them, but Robert of course wants G to use the veto if he wins it. June ends up winning the veto, though we learn that Allison and G threw it, and Justin was close in yet another competition. Robert wins one of the many America's choices of the season, and Erica makes up with Robert about things that happened in their past, especially with her getting him fired. Allison and June reaffirm their alliance, and Allison thinks that Jack is throwing competitions, where he actually isn't. June does not use the veto, though Justin calls her out about flip-flopping. The Dream Team decide to not campaign against one another, and the four of them, meaning June, Allison, Erica, and Jack, mention that they should pick off the Dream Team. Jack tries to pry G away from the Stooges, which he has done for a while now, and we see June and Allison talk about how everyone in the house wants Jack gone, and he's playing stupid because he's trying to stay safe. Allison tries to put the moves on Justin, and she mentions that she wants to keep him in the house, but Justin's clearly not interested in her, and we see her try to rub the genie in the bottle, if you know the meaning. And if you don't, look up the Christina Aguilera song. Robert tells Erica that it is going to be her and Jack on the block if someone from his side wins, and she mentions that it is their only move, so she understands it. Allison finds it uber convenient that Robert and Erica are fine now, and they aren't just talking about the personal stuff when they're in the hammock for 3 hours, so she wants Robert gone now. Honestly, Robert and Erica should have aligned strategically a lot sooner, as they're way behind Justin and Allison, as well as G and June. The Dream Team are coming up to terms with the fact that they will be split up, and they will be friends forever. I know Robert and Justin were friends for years after the season, but I don't know if G was friends with them for long after the season, and I doubt any of them are so close today. Justin is evicted in a 3-1 vote, and I don't know why this vote was pre-recorded, while the vote last week was live. Justin is easily the most underrated competitor of Big Brother, as he was like in the top 2 or 3 in every single competition he competed in, but people forget about that because he only technically won one competition. And he was definitely one of the more level-headed guys of the season as a player, as he kept things pretty simplistic strategically, though he knew what was happening for the most part. He was definitely good socially, and he was great competitively, but he had horrible threat management, and people were calling it out since week 1. And I do think he thought too much from a team perspective, where he definitely should have been a lot more individualistic with his game, kind of like Chi was at times. I do think he should have tried to keep Dana, since keeping June wasn't going to help him at all, especially with June wanting to target him. And I definitely think he should have pushed a bit more to keep Nathan, and I think he should have made up with Nathan a lot sooner, and it definitely would have helped both of the games. In general, Justin is probably one of the better players of the season. As a character, he is definitely fine, though he definitely made his problematic comments, and I don't think he would have been casted if it was just him on his own. Week 7 is like the last somewhat interesting week of the season, but it's nowhere near as good as some of the earlier weeks. We definitely do see the gender war start, and it definitely adds some intrigue in the end game portion of the season, and we see a great fall of one of the competitors. But in general, it's just kind of meh. Allison ends up crying because her security blanket in Justin is gone, and Jen thinks it is fake. G ends up winning HOH, though Allison throws it so she doesn't have to choose a side, and it's clear that Jack and Erica know that their time is up together in the house. Allison cries as she thinks that she is going home because G and Jack have gotten close recently, though Erica assures her that it will be herself and Jack who is nominated. Allison reveals in the diary room that she wants Erica in the final 3 with herself and June, but she does not know where Erica stands. Robert mentions to Erica that Jack will go, but he also tells Jack that he shouldn't worry since there are other plans. Allison tells G that she is not playing both sides, though he mentions that he's keeping her close as an enemy and he wants her gone. We also hear Jack, Erica, and June mention that they want to win the veto and that they can send Allison home. G and Erica have a general game talk where he mentions that he's going to put her up and Jack, though they agree on the floors that everyone hates, so clearly showing that most of the house does not respect June and Allison as players. Jack has a game talk with G and he propositions the final 4 with them, Erica, G, and June, but G isn't going for it, despite Jack mentioning that Robert and Justin always chose one another, and Jack offered that G put up Allison and Robert, which why would G do that? But apparently June pitched this final 4 2 weeks ago, but it blew up in their faces due to June's messiness. G and June talk, where she mentions that Robert is playing for himself, Jack and Erica are panicking, and maybe he should get together with the entire house to get Allison out, though June admits that this is a smoke so she can hide her alliance with Allison. The twist is that they play for the power of veto before the nominations are done, and in order to win the veto, they have to punish the house guests. I guess this is their way to change up the twist regarding the risk and reward tasks that they have given the house guests in the last 2 seasons. And honestly, this twist of doing the veto first, which they'll also do next week, is very stupid and makes the week even more disjointed and weird to watch. G ends up winning the veto, causing everyone in the house but him to be on peanut butter jelly punishment for a week, though it won't be announced until after the nominations. Everyone quickly surmised that G won the veto, and Robert wants to be evicted, especially since he thinks it's June, and it shows Robert's obsession with June in general. The house is not pleased with G whatsoever, and he admits it quickly. The entire house, sans Robert, agrees that G is the next target, and of course he does not like that June questioned him in front of the entire house, though he and Robert agreed that he was going to be a target regardless. Actually, Robert was the next target after Justin, and this was the case for most of the season, but this definitely changed it up, and it was the start of G's downfall. Robert pitches for June to be nominated with Erica to make her sweat, and June explains to G that she was trying to defend him or give him an opportunity to defend himself in front of the entire cast. G ends up nominating Jack and Erica, and it's clear with him winning veto, the nominations are already locked. Jack thinks that Justin gave G his marching orders, and G wants Erica to go over Jack. G and Robert want Erica to go, since she's a bigger threat, and they're hoping that Allison votes with them, though they seemingly ignore June about this the entire week, which isn't smart gameplay on their part. Allison speaks with Erica in the hot tub, and Erica mentions that she trusts June, so the 3 women should team up together. Allison and June talk, and June mentions that she trusts Jack more, but he might have an alliance with G, so they should get rid of him, which Allison likes, since she's closer to Erica than Jack, who is useless if he is floating, but she doesn't want to work with Jack if he is legitimately sucking in competitions. G ends up winning the luxury competition, which is to eat McDonald's, increasing his target even more. The girls bash G some more, since it makes sense for him to throw it, so one of the people on peanut butter and jelly can eat, since the house are starting to hate him even more. Jack is hoping that the guys will stick together, while the girls mention that Robert was initially the next target, but after this week, they agree that G needs to go first, especially since the jury will vote for him to win, and the guys will beat the girls at the end. We have the fun clothes burning task, and it makes the week a bit more interesting and a bit less dry, where they get clothes, which they also did during the last 2 seasons. After a last-ditch effort from Jack to try and get Allison on the block, G doesn't use the veto. Allison admits that G should have used the veto to get her out, and Jack mentions that the veto will backfire on him. More and more people are upset with G as the week goes on, and Erica talks to Jack about her abandonment issues from her father, as she has hung out with him, meaning Jack, more than her biological father. Jack and Erica are campaigning for themselves instead of campaigning against the other, and they both know that Allison is the swing vote. Allison is reveling in being the swing position as she tells June and Erica whatever they want to hear, and she tells Robert and G whatever they want to hear, while making a lot of unnecessary personal jabs, as she thinks Erica isn't being herself, as she isn't just beautiful, smart, and sweet all at once. Erica and June mention that they cannot trust her fully, and we have G and Robert stating the same thing, which just shows how little they respected Allison as a player, as Jack and Erica also mentions how unpredictable Allison is, and how much they hate her. G mentions in this HOH chat with Julie that he hopes that one of June or Allison is at the end with him, since he knows that he can beat one of them, which shows that there was a lot of conversation about June and Allison being beatable in the final 2. Jack is evicted in a 2-1 vote and admits that he didn't throw any of the competitions but the veto where he was nominated against Nathan, and it's crazy that so many people thought that he was throwing all these competitions. Jack is easily the standout male of the season in personality and just being very unique, as he definitely made me and a few others laugh, as he was one of the more likable ones, though he was definitely more immature than what he appeared. As a player, they definitely played up the fact that he was in the FBI, but he really wasn't good at the game, and he had awful reads time and time again. And he actually almost went home both of the times he was nominated before this week, where June was the reason why he didn't go home against David, and the random HOH comp being Endurance was the reason why he didn't go home against Nathan. Overall, Jack was still one of the standouts of the season, though he definitely got a better edit compared to the others. Week 8 is just in general very boring since there's only 5 people left and they did not speed up the end game, though I think that Scott's self-eviction caused one of these weeks to be delayed and for it to be a single eviction where they might have crammed the final 3 and the final 2 in the last week like they did in BB3, or they might have done the double eviction 1 season earlier, but that's all speculative. But at this point, the season is crawling at a snail's pace. Erica tells Jack that Allison was threatened by the Stooges, which is why she voted differently, and Erica did this to taint their, meaning G and Robert's, jury chances. Robert has a huge meltdown after he and G were blindsided again, and goes on a huge sexist rant, where even G admits that Robert has some issues with women in general. June wins the HOH competition, but due to the twist, she's escorted off the BB set immediately after the comp, and she's taken to the MTV VMA Awards in New York. The other house guests are given clues as to where June is, and they soon realize that it is for the veto competition. Nothing is really happening at this point of time, and it's a prime example as to why they started speeding up the endgame after the season. The other house guests comment on how G mentioned that he would suffer in peanut butter and jelly with the other house guests, but they've caught him eating normally in secret several times over the last week. Allison apologizes to the Stooges about her move last week, and Robert mentions that she has a chance to win, though G tells her that he isn't sure about that, which great read on G's part. Because she made an enemy of Dana, Nathan might go against her, and Justin probably isn't voting for her, and Jack's closer to June. Allison gets it correctly, so she wins the power of veto. Some of the house guests are resentful about June being able to leave the house, and Allison mentions that she's planning on taking June to the final 2, but wants Erica to take her to the final 2. Robert speaks to Erica about how he wants her to win the season over June and Allison. We see Allison whine about how June is so spoiled, especially compared to how Allison's family doesn't have a lot, and she claims that she's revealed this because Erica is compassionate, but it seems like genuine emotion coming from Allison at this point. June comes back in the house, and G tells her how pissed off Allison and Erica were at her. Erica and Allison talk to June about how G is the biggest threat, and she throws G under the bus to them, which they deny and mention that it was Robert who was really pissed, and they bash G, showing an ugly side. Allison mentions that she is starting to switch her mind as she wants to go to the end with Robert, since it's her best chance of getting the votes. The house guests had to pretend to be the 4 jurors I recorded, which is pretty funny to be honest. Erica bashes Robert to Allison, and that Robert better not make it to the end, and Allison should better not vote for him if he gets to the end. Allison reports this to June, which causes them to want to boot Erica out of the group. June nominates Allison and G for eviction, which nullifies whatever power Allison has. And regarding what I mentioned earlier, they want to boot Erica out of the group first because they think Erica wants to take Robert to the final 2, which is why she mentioned what she did. We learned that June told Allison that she was going up beforehand, which the Stooges think that Allison was shocked by it. Robert asks Erica on a date, since he thinks he can manipulate the other girls if he's the only guy left, since he wants to get closer to her for strategic purposes. G is hoping that his alliance with June is still intact, so he's working that angle, but she realizes that their alliance is done. Robert and G calls Allison a spineless bitch, where no one respects her game, and Allison mentions that she doesn't want to go to the end with Erica, since the latter hasn't pissed anyone off in the jury. June reveals in her HOH chat that she believes Allison wants to take her to the end over Erica wanting to take her to the end, and her intended final 2 is with Allison. Allison vetoes herself, and June nominates Robert as the replacement nominee. G is evicted in a unanimous 2-0 vote. G definitely impressed me as a player, especially after listening to the documentary and seeing how he was a lot more self-interested and more individualistic outside of his alliance than I thought. And he wasn't even really a huge target until his final 2 weeks, which were definitely huge blunders to his game, where he not only sacrificed the others to win the veto, but he won the McDonald's, and he was just so careless about it. It was nice seeing a Korean man and an East Asian man in the house, and is very strong in his identity. And this is one of the most diverse seasons in Big Brother history before the diversity quota, so it was just very interesting. And seeing his journey throughout the season was definitely something to behold. He's definitely one of the more likable men of the season, and one of the least problematic, so props to him for surprising me this season, where I didn't care much for him in prior watches. Week 9 is another boring week, but what did you expect? It's the final 4 round, and it's a week in these early seasons. But I guess what makes it a bit more enjoyable and a bit less predictable is the fact that the HOH result caused it to be a bit unpredictable, but in general, there's really just not much going on here. Robert ends up winning HOH, which ruined the women's plans, and now they have to turn on one another. Allison and June know that they will go up, since Robert has been getting close to Erica recently. Allison asks Erica if she has to deal with Robert, which she denies, but Erica doesn't think that she will be nominated. But the veto is all that matters. Allison tells Erica that June will win if she makes it to the end, but we know that it's just a part of Allison's floater strategy. In Robert's HOH room, the bear that he gave Erica when they were together was brought to him, and the girls felt weird seeing Erica comfort him. Erica and Robert have a talk where he makes a final 2 with her. They can add June to the final 3, meaning that they should evict Allison this round, but it's clear that Erica isn't enthused about a final 2 with Robert. Since it's Allison and June, and they have such brilliant personalities, we see them bashing Erica a bunch, and it's with a bunch of vulgarities. Erica is hoping that Robert will target June, since she knows that Allison and Robert will take her to the final 2. Allison talks about how she has a mental tube when she was born, due to having jaundice, and also had meningitis, and was born upside down, and it's an interesting story, but the other house guests don't buy it, and mention that she's doing it because she is attention-seeking. Robert talks to June and mentions that he wants Allison to go, since she does not deserve to be there, and how she's a competitor, though taking Allison to the end would be Robert's best chance to win, but he isn't really knowing of this. Robert speaks to Allison and tells her that she is the strongest competitor in the game, and she mentions to him that she won't have the votes to win, so he should take her. Robert nominates Allison and June for eviction. All the women are very calm, since they know that the nominations essentially mean nothing. Robert approaches Erica, who just wants to be alone, and he mentions that it'll be a cool story for them to be in the final 2, and she's annoyed with him, but knows that he's clinging onto her since he's very lonely and there's no other stooge in the house. June and Allison trash Erica and Robert about their lies about their personal lives, and it's just tiring to watch at this point. There's really nothing going on, though we do see Allison cock-block a conversation with Erica and June in the middle of the night. Allison wins the final veto of the season, and it's clear that she's going to evict Erica. Robert is clearly pissed off that his plan foiled, and Allison is annoyed that Erica immediately kisses her butt right after the veto comp. June and Allison key about how the others think that she, meaning June, is going, when that isn't the case. Robert gets America's favorite again to have a phone call with his daughter, and June as well as Allison wins a luxury prize to go on a blip. Erica tells Allison that even if she gets voted out this week, she does not want Robert at the end, but Erica wouldn't be shocked if she goes, especially since she knows Allison is very unpredictable. There's a lot of filler in this episode, since there's nothing happening in the week in general, and it's just proof as to why they shortened the final 4 round. Robert pitches to Allison for June to go, but why in the hell would she do what Robert wants at this point? We do see an emotional conversation with Erica and Robert, where he mentions that he has never lied to her. She mentions that he has lied to her in their relationship. He gives a sincere apology about everything that happened, and he takes accountability, mentioning that she's girlfriend, wife material, he'll take care of her like she's family, and he'll help her in real life whenever she needs it. And it leads to her breaking down in tears in the washroom stall. It's just a really interesting moment for me to watch. Allison vetoes herself, and Erica is named the replacement nominee, where Allison votes to evict Erica. As a player, Erica is kind of middling, to be honest, though she definitely has some good qualities. She is very under the radar, and that definitely helps her, and she does have a strategy that she's coming up with. The issue is that her social game was pretty poor in the first few weeks, and I don't know if she would have made it if she wasn't an ex. But she was able to lay under the radar and make some decent relationships and staying out of the fray overall, though she did start to improve massively as the game went on. As a personality, it is nice seeing her be so compassionate, and she does seem down to earth at times, but her racist comment in the beginning of the season and her kind of snobbish, wagging finger pointing behavior just really turns me off of her overall. She's just, but she comes off as more likable than some of the others that are left. Clearly, this isn't a likable cast at all. Week 10 is yet another boring week, but luckily there aren't as many episodes, so we don't have to deal with a whole lot happening. But it does get very vile at times as well. During part 1 of the final HOH competition, Robert tells them about Julie questioning him about him calling the women bitches, sluts, and hoes, which not only pisses them off because it's an awful thing to say, but the fact that he's admitting to it to them is poor gameplay where it wasn't necessary. After June is out, Robert proposes a deal with Allison about taking one another to the final 2, and she says that she will be 99% sure of it, which isn't 100% sure, and Robert immediately drops afterwards. Allison tells June all about the deal, though she gives Robert's semantics about the conversation with June. As you have seen, Robert and a bunch of other people call Allison emotional, which isn't a good thing for her endgame prospects. Anyway, we deal with the mime, who is supposed to be entertaining, but it also just shows how little was happening in the week that they needed this as filler. We also have the America's Vote, where someone can chat with the internet and they see what the fans like, and I believe this will be the final season that does this, and Robert wins America's favorite for the 3rd time. We see a lot of Robert bashing here, and the worst wasn't even shown, where they made xenophobic comments about him being Cupid, being fresh off the boat, which and they insulted his daughter. Since Allison is annoyed with June's cockiness, she stirs stuff up with Robert and June. None of this matters since June wins part 2 at the final HOH, meaning that Robert is no longer in the running and is sitting to be evicted essentially. Robert mentions to Allison that if he is evicted, he will taint the jury to make sure that she gets 2nd place, and he does the exact same thing to June, which is not a good thing to do, but he's insistent since people listen to him, or that's what he claims. It's sad that Julie questions June about maybe not having parents after the season, since they didn't watch the season, especially when her father was most likely in a coma during this period and would eventually pass away shortly after the season. June and Allison do their very best to throw the HOH, but June does it a bit better, causing Allison to win the final HOH, and she votes to evict Robert. Robert is definitely one of, if not the least likable man in the season, as he was just very misogynistic as a whole, and he was just kind of eerie to deal with in general. Though he was also the most complex since he delved into his alcoholism, his womanizing ways, and the fact that he's dealing with being a single father. As a player, he's really not good, and I kind of think he just rode Justin NG's coattails, and he lasted longer because he was least threatening. But he isn't actively bad, but in general, he's just middling at best. Week 11 is definitely one of the more interesting finale weeks, and it's definitely the most bitter, since you could just tell how irritated the cast were, especially as they watched the tapes after they voted, and you can tell how uncomfortable it was not only for the pre-jurors and the jurors, but for the final two as well. And it makes so much sense why this cast is one of the least close ones, why most of them hid in their caves for the last 20 years after the season ended, and why they rarely, if ever, talked to each other after the season, since there's just a dark cloud over it. But it ended the season in a relatively interesting sense. Dana asks Allison why she should vote for her, and Allison mentions due to the way she played the game in strategy and in competition, where Dana also asks June if she has any regrets, and June mentions getting into confrontations and showing an ugly side to her. Nathan asks Allison why she kept her alliance with Justin a secret from him, and she mentioned that she felt like it would deter their partnership, which it later did. And he asks June about jumping ship with Dana, and June mentions that she would have been alone had she not jumped ship with Dana, since he was close to Allison and the Stooges were close to one another. Justin asks Allison about her most dishonest moments in the house, and she mentioned voting Jack out in the final six, whereas she told the Stooges otherwise, and he asks June if cooking was a strategy, and she mentions that it was a strategy because she could see who was talking around the house and people's eating habits, shows people's personality. Jack asks Allison why she lied to himself, Nathan, and Erica about not nominating Justin on her HOH, and she mentions that she didn't want them to know about their alliance, and he asks June about betraying their alliance, where she mentions that they had an unspoken alliance, thought Erica would help her game more, and thought that he was throwing competitions. G asks Allison if she was honorable, and she mentioned that there are times where she was honorable and there are times where she wasn't honorable, and he asks June why she deserves to win more than Allison, and June pretty much mentions that she didn't need to flirt and get with men to make it to the final two like Allison did. Erica asks Allison how she couldn't vote for someone who betrayed her, where Allison is expecting Erica to vote for her, where Allison mentions that Erica said herself that she rode Allison's coattails and she didn't want to give Erica the win, and she also mentions that she isn't being given half the credit she deserves by the jury. Erica asks June about the personal attacks she made all season, and June says that she was trying to find humor in things, but she also knows that everyone did it, but she knows that she will see people taking shots at her on the show, so she wanted to get her digs in too. Robert asks June if she was going to be loyal to any alliance, and she responds that the alliance of 8 was too big. Her alliance with Dana would be short-lived because it was too obvious, and her alliance with the Stooges would be short-lived because she joined in too late. Robert asks Allison when she aligned with June, and she mentions that it happened after Nathan was taken from her, and she thought that she had a better chance with June at the end. June's final speech is about being strong women who made risky choices about who to hurt and who to leave alone for the week, but she hopes that the jury can see the differences between their games. Allison's final speech is about how she hopes the jury figures out what a player is and the major differences between their games, which were her competition wins, since it made her immune for 5 out of the 10 weeks. June ends up winning the season in an 8-1 vote. And I have to talk about it, but this season is easily the most bitter jury ever. Even when they entered the house again, everyone was standoffish, which wasn't the case in the last 2 seasons, where they ran in the finalists' arms and they were all engaged to talk to one another. And seeing the jurors' speeches after they revealed their votes just made both June and Allison sad. It's clear why they stopped having the house guests enter the house after the season, and they didn't have the jurors watch the tapes after the votes were done, as they made their voting live after this season. Though it was nice to have the cast have a reunion with the jurors and the pre-jurors talking about everything they watched in the season, and there's a lot of interesting commentary there too. It wasn't a feel-good finale, though it stands out to me, and you can tell that they made things a lot more joyous with the finales from Big Brother 5 onwards. This is the final season that would have the final two be interviewed by Julie afterwards as well. While Allison is kind of entertaining and kind of interesting at times, she's really unlikable in the season and says and acts so horribly through so many situations, and she could have easily handled things a lot better. And I definitely see why the house guests claimed that she was emotional. And while she was strategic, she didn't know how to handle things better. She didn't know how to manage the jury, and she just gave off a very insincere vibe. I would be lying if I said that she didn't make the season more interesting, and she was definitely the standout of the season. But this really isn't a good look, and she didn't have to do half the things that she did in the season. I will say that there's no one like her in Big Brother, so props to her. June is also someone that wasn't very likable in the season and said some awful stuff too. But I liked how self-aware she was with certain things, and I liked how she maneuvered the game, and she was a bit more clever compared to Allison, as the latter was a bit more emotional compared to June. But in general, she also made a lot of nasty comments, and she could have handled things a lot better. But she was also very entertaining, and I liked how she was just very stone-faced about certain things as well. And seeing her perfect the Florida game was really great to watch, and I appreciate her, as well as Allison, for really inventing the strategy and executing it to the best way possible. It was sad to see that June couldn't even enjoy her victory due to the lashings she got from the jury and hearing the news that her father was essentially dying right after the season. So it's pretty clear as to why I think Big Brother 4 is the weakest of the first era, though my opinions might change depending on how I feel about BB5, BB6, and or BB7, as I feel like the season gets extremely boring after the first half of the season. The cast really wasn't very likable at all. There wasn't a whole lot of drama, but we did get to know them due to the editing and due to them letting us see the Huskets for who they are, and there are definitely some interesting dynamics that were great to watch as well. And there's a lot of interesting strategy taking place, and there are some that wasn't even shown. So you definitely get the vibe that most of the cast was here to play a game, though there's still that honor, integrity, and be a good person thing that kind of holds weight, though it was lingering from BB3 and BB2. It's actually one of the more diverse casts of like the first 10 to 15 years at the show, which is kind of pathetic in itself, as it had a biracial woman, two Hispanic people in Dana and Robert, and as well as two Korean people in June and G, which was almost half of the cast, so that was props to them for that. And I remember there's a discussion where the cast in the first week was talking about how they liked the diversity of the season, as it would have been boring if it was just all white people. Like in past watches, I did find this season to be watchable, and I do respect it a lot more now, but it's just this icky feeling that I really can't rub off, and you could definitely see this dark decline from BB2 and BB3. So, like I mentioned in the past, and like I've done in the past, I will be ranking the game players and the cast of the season based off their gameplay and the 7 tiers that I've set, based on the skill sets that they showed in this season, and if their gameplay and their skills are repeatable if they're dropped in other seasons, so on and so forth. And then I'll move on to Big Brother 5. I'm also working on ranking the Big Brother Canada jurors, which is from everyone who is booted in jury up until the final 7, so that should come out soon as well. I might make a Where Are They Now for some of the Big Brother casts. That I'm not too sure about if I'm going to do next. And I'm probably going to calculate the polls that I've made of the BB Can seasons and see what you guys thought about which were the strongest and which ones are the weakest. Thank you all for supporting me in this journey, and I will see you all soon with something else. Bye!